They were never supposed to work. One was a 38-year-old Southern firefighter with soot on her boots, trauma behind her eyes, and scars she never showed. The other was a 25-year-old Ukrainian model who looked like she walked out of a magazine cover and had no idea how to work a microwave. But somehow, the moment they matched on a half-broken language exchange app, magic crackled like it had been waiting years to happen, and the world watched. Two women, both named Madelein. One from the humid fire zones of North Carolina. One from a small town outside Odessa, scattered with sunflower fields and silence. When TLC rolled out their faces in the season 10 promo of 90 Day Fiance, Happily Ever After, audiences gasped at the coincidence. The M&M couple, social media screamed. The nickname stuck as fast as the views poured in. On screen, they were a fairytale, touches stolen in the kitchen, broken English exchanged with laughter, then love. Journal entries where the Ukrainian Madeleine wondered aloud if she finally found her forever. Cut to American Madeleine installing rainbow lights on their apartment staircase so she don't trip on her way to my heart. It was TV gold. But behind those soft kisses and wide camera angles, something else was brewing. Not resentment. Not yet, not jealousy, but something heavier, unseen. Something that clung to American Madeleine's skin like sweat after a fire rescue. It was a secret, and it didn't want to stay hidden. The producers knew something was off during the second filming week. Behind the scenes, the firewoman sat down more than usual, wiped her forehead often, spoke slower. Once, while filming a morning cooking scene, they caught her leaning against the fridge as if the floor had moved. When asked, she brushed it off with a smile made of concrete. Long shift yesterday, she said. Just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was sick, she had been for years. 8 years earlier, her blood sugar wouldn't stabilize. At first, she blamed it on stress. Stress from losing her brother in a warehouse fire. Stress from working overtime while her crewmates cracked beers at 2 a.m., but sweat started pouring from her skin at random. She passed out once after climbing stairs. Her fingers trembled when she tried to write. A doctor told her she had type 2 diabetes, but it wasn't the kind that gets managed with vague optimism and salad. She needed insulin, needed monitoring, and she hated all of it. When she met the Ukrainian Madeleine, she hadn't had a sugar crash in months. That's what she told herself. She had it under control. More importantly, she told no one, not online, not on camera, not the woman she invited to move across the world. Love would cover the rest, she thought. Love would hold up fine under pressure. It didn't. The first time Ukrainian Madeleine saw the syringes, they were hidden inside a makeup pouch, buried under eyeliner. For a second, she thought they didn't belong to her wife. But then, one morning, she woke early and found the firewoman in the bathroom with the door locked, breathing fast, sweat pouring from her head as she jabbed something into her thigh. Their eyes met in the mirror. The bathroom tiles suddenly felt too cold. She asked nothing then, said nothing, but something shifted in that silence. What audiences couldn't see between romantic scenes and tight editing were the whispered questions the producers overheard. Why do you sleep in the recliner now? Why are you so tired all the time? What's in those protein shakes you won't let me drink? They never made it to air. TLC needed the love story, not the breakdown. By the 6th month, the cracks widened. American Madeleine forgot to buy insulin one week. She was filming late, she thought she had enough. Her vision blurred during a car ride back from set, and she bumped a light pole trying to park. No one was hurt, but she sat in the car, hands trembling, digging in her purse for an orange bottle that wasn't there. Still, she said nothing. She wouldn't let a diagnosis undo the dream. Not after flying someone halfway across the world. Not after becoming a hashtag. Not after what she gave up to be seen. Every lie now felt like bricks building a house she couldn't leave. So she smiled harder, kissed softer, filmed longer, until the seizure. It started as a sweat. More than usual. A cooking segment, themed Ukrainian dumplings with southern heat. They were laughing. Boiling water hissed in the background. The American Madeleine stumbled mid-joke and knocked over the salt. Ukrainian Madeleine reached out to catch her, but the body beneath her arms was shaking now, collapsing. The camera didn't cut away fast enough. That was the moment it all unraveled. The way the spoon clanged to the floor. The way the younger wife screamed before calling 911 in broken English. The crash of a cast iron skillet knocking off the counter. Those weren't scripted. They were truth, raw, brutal, caught on tape. Paramedics came. The producers stopped filming for 48 hours. No press release, no updates, only silence. The world had fallen in love with M&M as an idea, but ideas crack when truth kicks down the door. Ukrainian Madeleine stood in the ER hallway, mascara ruined, arms crossed like they were trying to hold together her spine. Her face had none of the love from the TV promos, only fire. Not the kind her wife fought in burning homes, but the kind that burned behind eyes when trust goes missing. 3 days later, she called a lawyer. And when the cameras resumed, it wasn't to film a dinner or a healing hug. It was to document one of the most devastating turnarounds in the show's entire history. What was once the world's sweetest love story had become something else entirely. A legal storm was coming. And it had only just begun. It began with a translator glitch. A broken word. The kind of mistake that would make most people swipe left, but not them. When Ukrainian Madelein typed, "I admire brave woman," the language app turned it into, "I worship firefighter queen." American Madelein laughed so hard she dropped her coffee. Then she replied with, "You just won my heart without even trying." That was the first message. From there, it moved fast. Every hour, a message. Every night, a voice note. Laughter across time zones. Screenshots saved like wedding photos. Two strangers spiraling toward each other, and neither asking enough of the right questions. Ukrainian Madelein had been through heartbreak before. A fiancé she caught texting her best friend. A job lost during lockdown. She was floating in loneliness when this woman, this beautiful stranger with soot on her jacket and fire in her chest, appeared across the screen, calling her sunflower, calling her hope. American Madelein didn't start out with secrets. At least that's what she told herself. She was simply leaving pieces out for now, testing the temperature. When do you tell someone that your body doesn't always listen to you? That you blacked out in your truck last year and lied when they said it was heat stroke? That you talk in circles with your doctor about injections you can't afford to miss? She didn't want to be seen as fragile. She wanted love first. Then honesty, but the order always matters. When the K-1 visa was approved, they were already being scouted by producers. Two women, different countries, same name, a built-in storyline, an audience waiting. American Madelein told the camera with a proud smile, "I've never loved anyone like her." And she meant it. But love built two fast turns shaky in the wind. The first week in North Carolina was all fireworks and fruit bowls. The younger Madelein took selfies in front of fire trucks. She choreographed little videos of them brushing their teeth together. It looked perfect. But it never is. She missed home, the quiet trees, the way her grandmother brewed coffee in silence. Here, trucks roared by the apartment every night. Dog barked at 3 a.m. She shivered despite the southern heat. And she began to notice things. The way her wife would wake up and immediately clench her jaw. Twist her foot back and forth like it was asleep. The way her wrists sometimes went limp when she chopped onions. At first, she assumed stress. But one evening, the older Madelein forgot what she wanted mid-sentence. Stared at the wall before blinking it off like a malfunction. She tried to ask, "Are you okay?" and got a fast, "Fine, tired." Always tired. Always a wall where there should have been warmth. She found a test strip in the laundry week 3. Wrapped inside a sock. It was unfamiliar, so she Googled it. Her search page stayed open the whole night. What kind of person, she wondered, keeps their medicine a secret? What kind of wife builds love on quiet fear? American Madelein kissed her forehead 3 times that morning, held her like promises she meant to keep. But Ukrainian Madelein couldn't stop blinking at the sock drawer. Something wasn't right. Something had never been right. The cameras never captured the cold floors at 3 in the morning, the damp towels on the bathroom sink, the quiet sobbing behind a locked door while the fan muffled the sound. To the world, they were still the dream, M and M, two women in love across continents, holding hands through accents and laughter. But behind the lens, fairy tales were rotting from the inside out. Ukrainian Madelein hadn't intended to become a caretaker, not at 25, not when she still felt like a child herself in a country that never stopped moving. But slowly, almost too gradually for her to realize, the shift began. First, it was wiping the sweat off her partner's forehead when she looked pale. Then, memorizing how much sugar to stir into orange juice during a crash. Then came late-night checks, just in case. Just to make sure her wife was breathing evenly. Just in case her skin wasn't ice cold again. She never signed up for this. She signed up for love, for late beach walks, for learning Southern barbecue recipes and decorating their first Christmas tree. But now, almost every week brought another unexplained migraine, blurred vision, a forgotten dinner. It was like she had married someone slowly slipping underwater, never fully drowning, but never truly safe. The public still saw smiles. The curated content didn't falter. Producers edited around the tension. Fans commented, relationship goals, without knowing how much therapy Ukrainian Madelein had searched for secretly online. She hadn't touched her art supplies for months. Her canvases sat folded in the hallway closet, collecting dust, where her wife's diabetic meds were shoved roughly behind them. Life had shifted from color and mess to monitoring numbers, glucose levels, meal times, injection intervals. It became rhythm, and not the good kind. The bedroom was where the silence screamed the loudest. Kisses became routine. Late night cuddles faded into back-turned bodies and unspoken distance. The intimacy that once held them together began to crack beneath invisible weight. Ukrainian Madeleine tried. She bought scented candles, tried lingerie that made her skin feel foreign. But nothing could spark desire when it smelled like hospitals and felt like waiting rooms. She began resenting the sound of blinking monitors on her wife's insulin pump. Every beep felt louder, every sigh heavier. There was no room left for her inside this marriage, only borrowed space between medications. One night, it all snapped. She asked directly, face to face, no softness left. Why didn't you tell me before we married? American Madeleine didn't answer at first. Looked down, ran a hand along her thigh like a reflex. Because I was scared you'd leave. That was all she said. The younger Madeleine stared, hands shaking not from rage but fatigue. But this is not what I agreed to. I'm your wife, not your nurse. Neither of them raised their voice. That was the worst part. There were no curses, no shattered glasses. Just the quiet ache of disappointment unspoken. Then a door slammed, and footsteps echoed her frustration down the stairwell. Later that night, Ukrainian Madeleine came back inside. The apartment was still. She walked past the kitchen, holding her shoes in her hands. But the bathroom door was cracked open. She paused. Inside, American Madeleine sat slouched on the closed toilet lid, gripping a syringe, her head bowed. The needle touched skin. She never knew she was being watched. The footage was never meant to air, but it did. Not the cleaned-up, polished version with gentle music and dramatic pauses. Not the version where everything could be edited pretty. What leaked online that day was raw, uncut, the truth with nowhere to hide. It begins with laughter. American Madeleine is in the kitchen, waving a wooden spoon in one hand, a bowl of dough in the other. Ukrainian Madeleine stands to the side, calling out measurements in broken English, joking that her wife adds too much salt to everything. It feels real. It feels sweet. Then it happens. In less than 30 seconds, everything changes. American Madeleine drops the bowl, her pupils shrink. She grips the edge of the counter, knuckles white. Then, as if her strings have been cut, she collapses. The camera catches everything. The dull thud of her body, her limbs twitching. The way her head jerks back once, twice, and then the scream. Call someone, help! Ukrainian Madeleine's voice cuts through the air, sharp and shattering. Her hands scramble for her cell phone, panic weighing down every breath. A producer shouts off camera, someone yells for water, but it's chaos. Real chaos. The 911 call begins to play, low and haunting beneath the courtroom narration. Ukrainian Madeleine's voice, shaky, foreign panicked, giving their apartment address through gasps. She's shaking, diabetic, I think, she never told me. Please send help. Those 9 words hit like thunder, she never told me. That call becomes the centerpiece of the court's discovery. The turning point not just in their marriage, but in public opinion. National headlines eat it up. Reality TV star suffers seizure on set, wife claims she never knew. Thin news clips become full-length features. Talk shows replay the clip until it becomes unbearable. Fans divide overnight. Some defend American Madeleine, calling her brave. Others attack her for selfishness, for deceit, for putting her wife in a life-or-death situation without any warning. The internet does what it always does, it spirals. Behind closed doors, the papers are already signed. Ukrainian Madeleine doesn't hesitate. The minute her wife's discharge papers are sent home from the hospital, hers go out in the mail. Annulment, no more filming, no more cameras, no more M&M filming halts for a week. When it resumes, everything has changed. The apartment is cold. Boxes line the hallway. Splintered picture frames still hang on the wall. Producers whisper offset that this was never meant to go that far, that they thought it was real, that they didn't see it coming. Neither wife speaks to the other, not directly. Through lawyers, yes. Through soreness, yes, but not with eyes. Not with hearts. They move out on the same day. Different times, different rides. Ukrainian Madeleine leaves first, dragging one suitcase down the stairs. A driver closes the rear door while paparazzi click from halfway down the street. She doesn't smile, doesn't wave, doesn't cry, either. 27 minutes later, American Madeleine steps out, slower. Pale from the seizure recovery, she holds onto the rail like it might snap. The street is quieter now, but not empty. The silence between their exits speaks louder than any post ever could. The fairy tale died on camera. The viewers were still watching, but there were no longer any heroes on screen. Only strangers, both of them too scared, too tired, too betrayed to look back. The courtroom felt colder than it should have. Not because of air conditioning, but because of what it held. Rows of strangers packed the gallery. Reporters tapped away at keyboards. Cameras clicked every 10 seconds. A boom mic hovered gently over the plaintiff's table like a vulture waiting for heartbreak. TLC producers stood in the back, silent, tense, no longer in control of the storyline they helped build. Ukrainian Madelein sat stiff and alert, dressed in calm colors that didn't match the fire in her eyes. This was the same woman who had once blushed at her wife's pickup lines through a phone screen. But this wasn't that girl anymore. This version had a folder clutched tight in her hands. Evidence, statements, photos of late-night glucose monitors blinking in the dark. She wasn't here for closure, she was here for justice. The judge entered. Formalities echoed through the chamber. And then, quietly yet forcefully, her name was called to testify. Her seat creaked as she walked forward, her heels touching polished floor one slow step after another. No hesitation, no glancing to the side, no looking for support in the face of the woman who had once been everything to her. She took the stand. When she started to speak, her voice didn't shake. It was sharp, controlled. Only when she told her story, not to cameras this time, but to strangers in robes and ties, did her hands begin to tremble. I left everything, she said, her accent rougher than usual under the weight of exhaustion. My home, my language, my mother, for her. She talked about the first week. The joy, the adventure, the tiny apartment kitchen that always smelled like garlic and clove. Then she pulled out her phone and held up a photo. Her wife passed out on the floor, insulin pens scattered nearby. The court whispered. One camera clicked a little too loud. I didn't know what was happening. I found her like that, she said, lifting her chin. No warning, no confession. Nothing, she explained the growing fear. The late-night episodes. The way she Googled symptoms in the dark because her wife wouldn't tell her. Every week, I thought, maybe this time she'll tell me the truth, she whispered. More than betrayal, she spoke of burden. I didn't come here to become responsible for someone else's life when I barely had control over my own. I moved to a new country. I had no job here, no career survival. I painted. That was me. I used to paint sunflowers. That's when her voice cracked. Her statement shifted from facts to feelings. I started managing alarm clocks every 4 hours, care schedules, food logs. I was scared every night she'd forget to inject and that I'd wake up beside a corpse instead of a wife. She paused. The judge let the silence sit. I was told this was love, that it would feel hard sometimes, but this wasn't hard. This was deception wrapped in romance. Then she stared directly at her ex-wife seated across the courtroom. I didn't come for papers. I didn't come for convenience. I didn't come to escape. I came for love, she said, her voice seizing its final breath. Not to die with her. The words landed heavy. A producer in the back closed his eyes as if bracing for more. And across the room, American Madeleine didn't blink. Didn't look away, but something in her finally cracked. Inside that silent stare was the beginning of her collapse too. No cameras flashed when she walked to the stand. No gasps, no whispers. Just slow silence as American Madeleine took each step like she was walking toward punishment. Her uniform had been traded for a plain blazer. Her blonde hair pulled back so tightly it looked like a mask. She didn't look like the firefighter America had fallen in love with. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. She sat down, eyes fixed forward, hands folded like she was bracing for impact. Her attorney rose beside her, voice low but steady, speaking not to the jury but to something deeper, something unspoken in every person watching. She is not a villain, he began. She is a woman who built a life brick by brick, and when she finally let someone in, she made the only choice she thought she had to keep love. He spoke of her past. A body that began breaking down in her early 30s. How she had once blacked out inside a burning building and didn't tell her team. How she watched her job nearly slip through her fingers because someone called her unfit the moment the word diabetic showed up on a medical chart. Then came the story no one in the courtroom expected. Her last relationship, 4 years before the show. She had told that woman, the first time she ever truly loved someone, about her diagnosis, about insulin, about the injections. But that woman left, walked out, said she didn't sign up to be someone else's nurse, the very same words that now echoed from the other side of this courtroom. She didn't choose to lie, her lawyer continued. She hesitated, she hoped. She loved too hard, and that made her scared. The jury shifted uncomfortably. They weren't looking at a monster. They were looking at someone who bled trust all over the floor because she never learned how to ask for help without losing everything that mattered. American Madeleine looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to feel human, not broken, she said, for once. The prosecution pressed hard. They brought out screenshots, messages, filming schedules. They dissected every opportunity she had to tell the truth and didn't. Why didn't you disclose your health before marriage? The attorney asked, leaning in. She hesitated. The courtroom fell still, a tremble in her bottom lip. Her eyes lowered. Her shoulders rose like the guilt finally weighed more than the room she sat in. Because, she said, her voice tight, cracking as the air left her, every time I've been honest about it, someone left. And then soft, almost crushed under the weight of shame. Yes, I hid my diabetes. The words didn't echo, they didn't shout, but they rippled through the jury like a stone tossed into frozen water. Outside those walls, the internet caught fire again. Some called her manipulative. Others called her human. A woman scared of losing love in a world that punishes weakness. Fans split in two. Even show producers debated whether hiding chronic illness before marriage should be called deception or desperation. Back inside, her cross-examination wasn't over. But for the first time, her wall was. The courtroom smelled of paper and tension. The kind of air that weighs on your lungs before anyone speaks. It was quiet, painfully quiet, as American Madeleine sat back down after her testimony. She'd told the truth, finally. But telling the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just costs you everything slower. She kept her eyes down, her pulse pounding beneath her skin. A loose strand of hair fell across her cheek, stuck to the dampness there. No one touched her, not even her lawyer now, not after that confession. The room had shifted into something else. It had become still, not peaceful, but loaded. Like the moment before an oxygen tank explodes. Time crawled. Then juror number 4 leaned in to whisper something to the person beside him. That's all it took, the tension cracked. American Madeleine's hands began to twitch. At first, no one noticed. Her fingers curling inward, then stretching. Her breath slowed, then stuttered. Her eyes blinked once, twice, then her body went sideways. She slammed into the wooden rail beside the witness chair, her bones hitting with a sound too loud to ignore. Gasps shot through the courtroom like gunfire. Someone in the back screamed. Her knees buckled under the bench. Her chin hit the floor seconds after her legs did, and the sound of her skull grazing hardwood was final, like the end of a book no one wanted to finish. The judge stood. The camera panned wildly. One reporter dropped their coffee all over their lap trying to get the shot. She's seizing, one voice shouted. She's collapsing, another cried. The bailiff was first to reach her, then her lawyer. Then an EMT who had been stationed outside because of prior episodes. Panic replaced order in seconds. Her breathing was shallow. Her shirt partially lifted in the fall, exposing the edge of her insulin pump. Flashing red. Ukrainian Madeleine didn't move from her seat. She didn't cry, she didn't blink. Her hands stayed folded in her lap like they were glued there. Her expression didn't change, but her jaw clenched hard enough to tremble slightly. And her eyes didn't look at the floor. They stared forward, cold and wide. Like she'd already lived this moment in her mind 100 times. Phones went up in the gallery, regardless of court rules. Someone live-streamed it to a reality gossip fan group. 30,000 viewers watched in real time as paramedics loaded American Madeleine onto a stretcher. Some called it karma. Some cried with her as her eyes rolled back and her hand dropped limp at her side. The EMTs wheeled her out. The courtroom stayed open, but the air had soured. By the time they reached the courthouse's front steps, 15 separate angles had hit the internet. Raw footage was on dozens of YouTube channels within the hour. Instagram reels looped the fall over and over, slowed down, zoomed in. TikToks flooded with reactions, tears, laughter, arguments. It was no longer just a love story gone wrong. It had become a moment in time. A collapse that echoed far beyond the courtroom. By midnight, the entire internet was using the same 3 words. Number sweet truth collapse. It wasn't about whether she was wrong or right anymore. It was about how a secret can leave your body the same way pain does, sudden, violent, and in front of everyone. A week went by, but the storm didn't pass. It followed them both in different ways. American Madeleine lay in a hospital bed under soft fluorescent lights, scrolling through headlines she couldn't stop reading. Reality star collapses after shocking testimony. M&M couple implodes in federal court. Number sweet truth collapse sparks mental health crisis talk across America. Every article told a version of the truth, but none told hers. She was now the face of chronic illness in silence, of secrets that crush and confessions that cost, of every woman who had once been too afraid to speak. Interviews poured in, but most she declined. The offers felt less like support and more like spectators looking to press fingers into a fresh bruise. Meanwhile, across the city, Ukrainian Madeleine had become something else entirely: the protector, the betrayed. The young, foreign wife who was forced into caregiving and abandonment all at once. She became the bold contrast to Collapse, the composed one, the fighter, but she didn't feel bold, she didn't feel strong, she felt hollow. Burnt out from explanations, tired of sympathy that came with strings attached. People sent her flowers, messages, praise. It didn't make her sleep. She hadn't touched a paintbrush in months. When the court resumed for the second session, they sat across from each other once more. American Madeleine wore a surgical patch on her arm and didn't say a word. Her body remained still. But her eyes searched the courtroom for something that didn't seem to be there anymore. Ukrainian Madeleine took the stand again. She hadn't meant to talk about her grandmother. It wasn't in the statement she rehearsed the night before. But mid-sentence, her shoulders dropped and her voice changed. For the first time in all the noise, all the media and performances and reports, she didn't speak to the crowd but from one woman to another. Her name was Olna, she said softly, not bothering to dry the tears as they slid down. She used to pass out in the living room. Her hands trembled when she tried to sew. I was 7 when I saw her have her first seizure. She paused. The courtroom held its breath. No one explained what insulin was. I thought she was dying every time. I stopped sleeping. I got sick from anxiety. They told me it was in my head. A laugh escaped, sharp and cold, but her eyes were wide now, glassy. I started to hate the sound of syringes clicking. I couldn't even open a bottle of water without shaking if she didn't answer from the other room. She turned to the judge now, not angry, just tired. So when I saw Madeleine hiding the same sickness, lying about it, I didn't know what was real. I didn't know if I'd wake up and find her gone too. American Madeleine's eyes dropped to her lap. I wasn't scared of her, the younger woman whispered before her voice broke completely, cracking down the middle like glass under pressure. I was scared of watching it all happen again. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. This was the first time truth met understanding in that room. No comments, no headlines, no trending hashtags could overwrite what had just been said. For a brief moment, the drama faded. All that was left was grief. And the ache of what neither could give each other. A week went by, but the storm didn't pass. It followed them both in different ways. American Madeleine lay in a hospital bed under soft fluorescent lights, scrolling through headlines she couldn't stop reading. Reality star collapses after shocking testimony. M&M couple implodes in federal court. Number Sweet Truth collapse sparks mental health crisis talk across America. Every article told a version of the truth, but none told hers. She was now the face of chronic illness in silence, of secrets that crush and confessions that cost, of every woman who had once been too afraid to speak. Interviews poured in, but most she declined. The offers felt less like support and more like spectators looking to press fingers into a fresh bruise. Meanwhile, across the city, Ukrainian Madeleine had become something else entirely: the protector, the betrayed. The young, foreign wife who was forced into caregiving and abandonment all at once. She became the bold contrast to Collapse, the composed one, the fighter, but she didn't feel bold, she didn't feel strong, she felt hollow. Burnt out from explanations, tired of sympathy that came with strings attached. People sent her flowers, messages, praise. It didn't make her sleep. She hadn't touched a paintbrush in months. When the court resumed for the second session, they sat across from each other once more. American Madeleine wore a surgical patch on her arm and didn't say a word. Her body remained still. But her eyes searched the courtroom for something that didn't seem to be there anymore. Ukrainian Madeleine took the stand again. She hadn't meant to talk about her grandmother. It wasn't in the statement she rehearsed the night before. But mid-sentence, her shoulders dropped and her voice changed. For the first time in all the noise, all the media and performances and reports, she didn't speak to the crowd but from one woman to another. Her name was Olna, she said softly, not bothering to dry the tears as they slid down. She used to pass out in the living room. Her hands trembled when she tried to sew. I was 7 when I saw her have her first seizure. She paused. The courtroom held its breath. No one explained what insulin was. I thought she was dying every time. I stopped sleeping. I got sick from anxiety. They told me it was in my head. A laugh escaped, sharp and cold, but her eyes were wide now, glassy. I started to hate the sound of syringes clicking. I couldn't even open a bottle of water without shaking if she didn't answer from the other room. She turned to the judge now, not angry, just tired. So when I saw Madeleine hiding the same sickness, lying about it, I didn't know what was real. I didn't know if I'd wake up and find her gone too. American Madeleine's eyes dropped to her lap. I wasn't scared of her, the younger woman whispered before her voice broke completely, cracking down the middle like glass under pressure. I was scared of watching it all happen again. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. This was the first time truth met understanding in that room. No comments, no headlines, no trending hashtags could overwrite what had just been said. For a brief moment, the drama faded. All that was left was grief. And the ache of what neither could give each other 6 months later, the cameras returned. Not for a reunion, not for ratings, just the aftermath. Ukrainian Madelein sat perched on a velvet chair in a small production studio outside Kiev. Her hair was longer now, darker. She wore it straight, tucked behind her ears. Her makeup was light, her eyes heavier. The crew had flown there for one final interview, one final glimpse into what became of the girl who left for love and returned with silence. She didn't tear up when she spoke, she didn't need to anymore. I am not angry with her, she said, folding her hands in her lap. I think she was afraid. And maybe I was too, but when two people are afraid of different things and don't speak them, it turns into something else. Something that lives between them and eats everything. She paused. Then she spoke the part that made the producer drop their pen. I still love her, I just couldn't stay. She looked into the camera like she was speaking directly to a version of herself months earlier. The one who stood in customs gripping a folded-up visa and dreams she couldn't name. She told me, "You'll never have to carry what hurts me, only what heals me." But I ended up carrying both. She didn't ask for sympathy, only understanding. In Wilmington, North Carolina, American Madeleine walked toward a podium in a local rec center's multi-purpose room, where folding chairs held survivors, caregivers, and strangers all tied together by one thing: chronic illness. She'd started working with a patient advocacy group that helped people navigate shame, medication barriers, and disclosure before entering long-term relationships. She didn't get paid. She didn't want to. This was her way back to herself. Her voice at the mic was stronger now, more grounded. I didn't lie to hurt someone, she told them, but that doesn't make it harmless. She looked out at the small crowd of faces. I thought love would hold my truths for me, without needing me to say them out loud. It doesn't work like that. Later that evening, she sat in her truck alone, engine off, scrolling through a saved video on her phone. A clip from their wedding. Ukrainian Madeleine laughing, her nose scrunching slightly like she always did when she was trying not to cry. She didn't press play, she just watched the still image. No contact had been made between them since court ended, and maybe none ever would, but they still lived in each other, in the way she now told her medical history at the start of every date. In the way Ukrainian, Madeleine refused to make herself smaller for someone else's silence. They were broken no longer, just changed. The final scene cut between the two lives, quiet as snowfall. No narration. No camera trickery. No last-minute twist. Just two people, in two different countries, learning how to survive without each other. And one final voiceover, soft and honest as a closing sentence. If love was enough, why did we both lose it all? Now we want to hear from you. Should hiding illness in a relationship be treated as betrayal? Would you forgive that kind of silence, or walk away? Tell us what you think down in the comments.